Hi there, this is James Valvis coming at you with a new Poepinion. A Poepinion is the kind of talk I do that's on literary matters. Literary matters may be discussion of a literary work. It may be whatever's going on in the poetry world. It may be whatever I deem to be literary in nature. In this case, I wanted to talk about a book, and really a short story, by a man who just recently passed away by the name of Harlan Ellison. Now, Harlan Ellison was a great science fiction writer. There are not too many writers who are really great at what they do. That number is exceedingly small. It's so small that you can almost count them on one hand in any particular genre at any particular time. Excuse me while I do this here. Now, Harlan, he was something special. He could really write. He was almost a polymath. He had an incredible ability to write in just about any situation or anything. But a lot of what he wrote, let's be honest, was, not that great. Some of it was not that great anyway. That's true of almost any prolific great artist. You think, oh, well, Dickens was a great artist. He was. But how great is Hard Times as a book? Not that great. You look at a writer like, I don't know, Shakespeare, and you look at some of the lesser plays or some of the lesser sonnets, and you say, okay, it's not bad. Nothing that these writers ever write is bad, but they're not great either. Now, I've read quite a bit of Harlan Ellison, but there's quite a bit of Harlan Ellison to read. So you can read a lot of Harlan Ellison and not ever get to the bottom of them. And I don't know that I will ever get to the bottom of them in this lifetime. There's all kinds of stuff to read. And of course, I'm familiar with his television work too, and his movie work. He wrote some of the classic Star Treks and that kind of thing. He wrote for Twilight Zone, the reboot, and some of that stuff. So there's great works throughout, but he's especially known for his short fiction, because his short fiction is where he and guys like Robert Silverberg and others are best known for. But Silverberg was much more of a novelist than somebody like Ellison was. Ellison was mainly known for his short stories. And this short story that I'm going to talk about today, Repent, Harlequin, said the TikTok man, which is a heck of a title. It's both long and interesting, and you sit there and you think about it and you say, I don't think I would have went with that, but it works. But it's probably his second most famous short story. I think his most famous is I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream. And I think that's probably his most famous short story. But this story is not far behind that, and it won the Hugo and the Nebula, if I'm not mistaken. It won everything. It swept everything. It was just an amazing. People just loved it. I do not love it. Like I said, I read it for the first time yesterday. Like I told you, there's a lot of Harlan Ellison to read, and I just never got to this particular book, which is Pain God and Other Delusions. This is one of his collections. He has many collections of his work, and this is just one of them. And even though it's been anthologized in tons of places, and it's a widely celebrated story, there's a lot of writers in the world, and there's a lot of great stories in the world, and it just takes time to get to all of them, or even to get to half of them. And I've not even gotten to, I don't think, a quarter of them. So it's just it's a process. It's trying to get to everything. And so I read it yesterday, and maybe because of the great, anticipation, the great build-up of this much celebrated story, that I went into it with high expectations. I just came away flat. I don't feel like it's a good story. I don't feel like it deserved any of those wins. Now, Harlan Ellison is a great writer, and he probably deserved most of the awards he got. He probably deserved awards he didn't get. But when I read this story, I say to myself, and I'm just coming off reading the title story of this collection, which is Pain God, which is, in my opinion, a much better story and a much more interesting story. maybe I'll talk about that too, but I wanted to talk about this one because it's more famous. And I don't know if I'll get to anything else in this book, so I do want to talk about this one. Now, he does something interesting here at the beginning of the story. Is what he does is he pulls in a big, giant quote from Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau, the guy on Walden Pond, that guy. He brings him in and he gives this big paragraph from on civil disobedience, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to tell you why he just completely messes with the whole thing. It just completely has no function in the story, or at least it's perverted function. Okay, this is the Thoreau quote. The mass of men serve the state thus, not as men mainly, but as machines with their bodies. They are the standing army and the militia, jailers, constables, posse comitatus, etc. In most cases, there is no free exercise whatever of the judgment of the moral sense, but they put themselves on a level with wood and earth and stones, and wooden men can perhaps be manufactured that will serve the purpose as well. Such command no more respect than men of straw or a lump of dirt. They have the same sort of worth only as horses and dogs. Yet such as these even are commonly esteemed good citizens. Others, as most legislators, politicians, lawyers, ministers, and office holders, serve the state chiefly with their heads, and, as they rarely make any moral distinctions, they are as likely to serve the devil, without intending it, as God. A very few, as heroes, patriots, martyrs, reformers in the great sense, and men, serve the state with their consciences also, and so necessarily resist it for the most part, and they are commonly treated as enemies by it. Okay, now that's the quote. Now I have problems with the Thoreau quote in itself. It opens the door up to me, I think, to dehumanize all sorts of innocent people. I just don't think it's ever a good idea to start calling the mass of men, what does he say, wooden men, and command no more respect than men of straw or a lump of dirt. I mean, that's, Thoreau's writing this at a time before the Nazis and before the gulags and before Mao just went through and killed tens of millions of people. So he gets some kind of pass here, but at the same time, it's just not good to be saying this. It's an affectation of the intellectual elites. They always think the mass of men are just scum, and they don't think, and they don't deserve to even be thought of as real men. And it's just a horrible way to look at the world. So that's my first problem with it. That's a problem with Thoreau. But remember now, Harlequin's bringing that Thoreau quote in here, and he's going to talk about how, of course, Harlequin, the Harlequin in the story, who he gives the name Everett something, and he decides that this guy Harlan, he's playing with his own name here. He's clearly using this other guy as a emotional stand-in for himself. You automatically know that you're in trouble with a writer when they're using themselves as a fictional stand-in for something that is not autobiographical in nature. So you're if they're using there's this guy Scalzi who writes these old man's war novels, and he actually named the character John, and the guy is just basically him on the page. Whenever you're dealing with that kind of nonsense, it's usually you're in bad hands. You know that what's coming is going to be usually either some kind of virtue signaling, or it's going to be some kind of excusing of one's own failings in life. And I think that what we're going to see here is a little bit of both of that from Mr. Ellison. Okay, so let me give you a basic rundown on the story after that. And if you haven't read it, you could pause this and go read it. It's not a very long, short story. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages on my iPad. So, I don't know what that amounts to, but it can't be more than 3,000 words. It's probably somewhere around 2,500. And it's very well written, because Harlan Ellison does not write poorly. He never writes poorly. He's a competent an accomplished writer, and he always writes with aplomb. It just means just sometimes when what you're writing about is not very good, writing with aplomb is not necessarily a great thing. So because you're advancing, bad ideas in the form of in a very artistic way, and usually people are attracted to artistic beauty, and therefore they begin to think that ideas are these ideas are good. It's one of the reasons why something like Birth of a Nation, a movie like that would be problematic, because it's a beautifully done film, or at least it was at the time, and yet its core is built upon something poisonous, and therefore it has issues in that regard. So what happens in the story is that Mr. Everett finds himself as a person who does not like to be on time. He doesn't like to be on time. He's not good at being on time. He resents having to be on time. But he happens to live in a society that has been organized in such a way that a person who is late has whatever time that they are late by subtracted from their life. So if you're late 5 minutes, that comes from the end of your life. And ultimately, if you move along far enough, they will come and they will kill you because you've run out of time. And so the guy who does all this adding up and is kind of the executioner is the TikTok man. And the TikTok man has a real name. I kind of forget it, but his nickname is really the TikTok man. But his real name is something else. That's much more official. The TikTok man is a 6 foot tall guy. He's a silent, soft purring man, and he's just he's otherwise a nice guy. But he's got this thing where he does this thing. So he introduces the TikTok man, and then he introduces the Harlequin. And the Harlequin is this guy who's married to this woman, and he's always late, and he's always getting dinged for it by the TikTok man and by the society. And so the master timekeeper, I think that's what his name was, that the master timekeeper says that you have to be on time, and this guy says, nah, the heck with that. And so what he does is he dons a Harlequin clown suit, like a Harlequin suit, and he goes around and he makes people late. He goes around and he dumps jelly beans on people, and that makes the whole system late for 7 minutes here and 5 minutes there. And this is what he does in his spare time. And eventually he gets caught, and his name is Everett C. Marm. I see it here. And when Everett C. Marm gets caught, he gets interrogated, and then we get the title of the story. "Repent, Harlequin," said the TikTok man, and he says, "Get stuffed." The Harlequin replied, sneering, "You've been late a total of 63 years, 5 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, 12 hours, 41 minutes, 59 seconds, 0.03611 microseconds. You've used up everything you can and more. I'm going to turn you off. Scare someone else. I'd rather be dead than live in this dumb world with a bogeyman like you. It's my job. You're full of it. You're a tyrant. You have no right to order people around and kill them if they show up late. You can't adjust. You can't fit in. Unstrap me and I'll fit a fist in your mouth. You're a nonconformist. That didn't used to be a felony. It is now. Live in the world around you. I hate it. It's a terrible world. Not everyone thinks so. Most people enjoy order. I don't. And most people I know don't. Anyway, it goes on like that for some time. And what you realize after a while is that, at least for me, I start to root for the TikTok man. Because here's the deal. Requiring people to be on time is an absolute necessity in life. There is no way you can function in a society where everybody just gets to show up whenever the hell they damn well please. We all understand this. We all, at some level, understand that, listen, if you say you're going to be at work at 8 o'clock, they're relying on you to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you're not there at 8 o'clock in the morning, it costs them money. It costs them business. And it costs them, trust in you as a person. You've made a promise, and you've not kept that promise. Now, if you tell your wife you're going to be home in time for dinner, and you're not, and she has dinner on the table, and it gets cold, and everybody has to eat cold food, then you've done a little bit of damage. Now, if it's a big enough reason, sure, you'll be forgiven. But if you do it all the time and you're doing it just because you're careless, it goes with everything else. Every relationship that you can think of requires people to be on time. It requires them to be considerate. It requires them not to be rude. You see, this is not the state being tyrannical. It's not. If you show up on Monday for the baseball game and they say to you, sorry, we felt like playing it on Tuesday instead, and you paid $60 for that ticket, you know what you're not doing next time? You're not buying another $60 ticket. You're not buying any other ticket because you wasted a whole day and they just arbitrarily decided to, screw you. We don't care. This whole idea that this is somehow tyrannical, that these promises that we make to each other and that we're expected to keep is somehow the same as the Soviets coming down on your head because you said the wrong thing to the wrong person. That's just not accurate. That is an absolute farce of an idea. It is taking what Thoreau said, and even if you remove all the nonsense about the lesser men, and you say, okay, he has a point, and that we should not just serve the state, that we should also be higher men than that. We should not just be people who just go about our daily business, and we should be thoughtful, and we should question the state when the time comes. This is not that. This is not what Harlan Ellison is contemplating here. What he's saying is that anybody who puts restrictions on me, or any time I'm held to give my promises that I will be on time, that I will deliver that manuscript when I said I would, that I will show up at the studio when I said I'd be there, when I would, and all the other things that he missed because he was kind of a head case. That is not tyranny. That is irresponsibility. That is just simply plain old outright chaos inside a particular individual. And so by the time he invokes 1984, I'm thinking, oh, give me a break. Give me a break. Really? This is what you got? This is the left. And Harlan Ellison's not the most left-wing guy in the world. But this is how it pollutes your mind. You end up feeling like a victim because you said you'd be there for breakfast and you showed up 3 hours late and somebody's upset. You're not a victim. Harlan Ellison was not a victim. Harlan Ellison, despite being universally called a jerk by just about everybody, really, a lot of people, I actually think he's kind of funny, but just about everybody who ever worked with this guy, he was just a pill. He really was a hard person to get on with. And such a person had immense success in the world. Huge amounts of success in the world, despite this complete and total, almost pathological unconcern about other people and their deadlines. And yet he still felt as if he was a victim. He still felt the need to write this, and they celebrated him for it. They gave him every award that you can think of for this particular story. And yet I look at it and I come to the end, and at the end, it gives the old. Well, I don't even think the end is very good. Where it turns back on. It's almost like a Twilight Zone episode where it turns back. The TikTok man is 3 minutes late because he was interrogating Everett, and it's like it's almost like Obsolete Man or something like that, where the guy turns on his own thing. But the Obsolete Man is a much stronger story than this is. Generally speaking, like I said, Harlan Ellison's a great writer, but this is not a great story. This is one of those stories that succeeded far beyond what it's really worth. And you get that from time to time. Not always. A lot of times you read a story that is, has been celebrated far and wide, and you're just blown away by it. There's something like The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, or Everything That Rises Must Converge by Flannery O'Connor, or The Killers by Ernest Hemingway, or A Rose for Emily by Faulkner, or something like Cathedral by Raymond Carver. These stories are both famous, both usually award-winning in some way. I just named all literary guys, by the way. I can name you some science fiction short stories as well that are terrific. The Invisible Man by Robert Silverberg, for instance, is just a terrific story. And I think, I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream is by Helen Ellison, is just outstanding. It's a wonderful story, but this is not. This is, in my opinion, an extremely overrated story, and I just wanted to share that. But I do think that if you get a chance to pick up this collection, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. There are multiple stories in it. Pain God is wonderful. I really quite enjoy Pain God, and there are others as well. But this story, no, it fails for me. But maybe your mileage will be different. Lots of other people have loved it, and so that's what I wanted to talk about today. And now that I've done so, I hope that you enjoy the video. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment. Tell me if you read the story, if you liked the story, if you've read Harlan Ellison, what you think of Harlan Ellison, what you think of this new format. I don't know what I'm going to do for a visual yet. It might be a still. It might be a movie looped. It might just be some trees or something. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe it'll be a clock going round and round out. Probably not. It would take too much work. Anyway, at the moment, I'm still working on other stuff. I'm still trying to improve here. And but I'm really excited that this is all coming together now. I've got everything I need. I'm working on improving my skills here. And in time, I'm going to get it right. So I hope you stick around, and I hope that you have a good time, and I hope you read the story, or at least the book, and read Harlan Ellison. He's a wonderful writer, and as always, God bless you.